According to the Euthyphro Dilemma, we have a choice to make about how we view the relationship between God and morality. Assuming theism, God is somehow related to morality, and according to the Euthyphro Dilemma, which is presented as an objection to theism, we only have two options for understanding the relationship between God and morality. And on either of those options, we get a devastating problem for theism. So what are the two options, and what are the problems that they present for the theist? Well, let's try to get at what those two options are by analogy. So let's imagine the case of what I'll call the ideal umpire. So we don't need to specify what sport we're talking about. That might present us with some problems in the details. But let's think about a sport in which the umpire or the referee is perfectly reliable about when fouls occur. So this umpire has no false positives or false negatives in his pronouncements. That is, he can pick up exactly all the fouls that actually occur. He doesn't miss any of the ones that occur, and he doesn't pronounce that one occurs when it didn't occur. So he's exactly perfectly reliable about what fouls occur. So we have to answer the following question about this umpire. We have really two options for understanding his relationship to the facts about the fouls. So on the one hand, we have facts about when a foul actually occurred, right? And on the other hand, we have facts about the umpire's judgments or pronouncements, right? So there's the facts about what fouls happened, and there's the facts about what the umpire said or thought or believed or pronounced. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the relationship between these two sets of facts? On the first option, what the right call is independent of, and in fact precedes, the umpire's call. So there's a fact of the matter about whether there's a foul, and the umpire is just really good at seeing when there is a foul. But whether there's a foul obtains independently of what the umpire says. It's just that he's really good at seeing it when it happens. So that might sound like an intuitive view, but compare it to a different view. You might say it's actually really suspicious that this umpire is as reliable as he is. And you might actually start to wonder whether it's the other way around. He's so reliable, why shouldn't we say that actually his judgments or pronouncements actually determine what the right call is or whether there's a foul? What he says goes, so to speak, right? So you can see the difference between these two views, and you can summarize this as a difference about the direction of determination between the umpire's opinions or pronouncements and the facts about whether there was a foul. On the one view, the facts about the fouls determine what the umpire says or believes, and on the other view, what the umpire says or believes determines whether there was a foul or not. We can think about an exactly analogous distinction when we talk about the relationship between God and morality. So imagine someone commits an act, it's a murder, and it was wrong. Let's assume that for now. And God judges that it was wrong. That murder was wrong, he says, or he thinks, or he believes, or whatever. Now, there's an exactly similar distinction as there was in the case of the ideal umpire. We can say, on the one hand, there are these facts about whether murder was wrong. There are the moral truths, so to speak. And on the other hand, we have these facts about God's judgments or pronouncements or opinions or whatever. And we have to ask ourselves, what is the relationship between God's beliefs or pronouncements about morality and morality itself, the moral truths? What is the direction of determination? So according to the Euthyphro Dilemma, we have two options, just like we did in the ideal umpire case. On the first option, there's a fact of the matter about whether murder is wrong or whether this particular murder is wrong, antecedently to and independently of God's judgment that the murder is wrong. God is just, because he's omniscient, this is part of theism, he's just really good, in fact perfectly good, at picking up on wrongness when it happens. But it's not like his opinion determines whether there was wrongness in a particular case. On the second sort of view, directly analogous to the second view on the umpire case, God's judgment actually determines when something is wrong. God says murder is wrong, and that makes murder wrong. So God has a lot more power on this view, so to speak. Okay, so those are, according to the Euthyphro Dilemma, the two options we have for understanding the relationship between God and morality. So, what are the problems associated with each of those two views, according to the Euthyphro Dilemma? Like we said, it's supposed to be a problem for theism, so what are the problems on each disjunct? Well, on the first option, the proponent of the Euthyphro Dilemma says that if murder's being wrong is antecedent to, or precedes, or is at least independent of God's judgment, it seems like there's some facts out there about wrongness that are independent of God. And this does seem to be in at least some tension with theism. Theism wants to say that God is somehow supreme, or sovereign, or has perfect control of everything. That nothing precedes him, nothing is independent of him. These are all sort of different ways of getting at the same thought. But it looks like on this first option, there is actually something independent of God, and that is morality. So that's the problem with the first view. Theism seems committed to the view that nothing exists independently of God, but on the first view, it looks like something does exist independently of God, and it's the moral truths. Okay, on the second view, it actually looks like we have a totally different kind of problem, but equally objectionable according to the proponent of the Euthyphro Dilemma. And the problem there is that if God's judgment determines what's wrong, it looks like wrongness is totally arbitrary. If God's judgment determines what's morally wrong, surely the objection goes, God could have declared anything wrong and it would have been wrong. But surely we don't want to say that murder could have been perfectly permissible, that genocide could have been good, maybe. But it looks like if God's judgments determine what is wrong and what is good and what is bad, God could have commanded or could have pronounced anything good or bad or wrong, and that just doesn't look to be true. We have very deep intuitions and commitments about morality. We don't want to say that it easily could have been false that genocide was wrong, or that it easily could have been true that we have an obligation to commit it. So it looks like on either disjunct, we get a big problem for theism, and that is the Euthyphro Dilemma.